Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is Jerry Tardieu. He's a former lawmaker in Haiti, and he's the national coordinator of a new movement called Forward. Thank you very much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Haiti, it's a murdered president, kidnappings, including one of U.S. missionaries lately, all-powerful gangs, an earthquake. Obviously, the news is rarely positive, but from your experience, is this the worst situation you've ever witnessed in your country?
Probably. In my 53 years on Earth, living mostly in Haiti, this is one of the worst situations. I mean, the former president's assassination is the most palpable, I would say, symptom of Haiti's descent into chaos and violence. I mean, obviously, might have not been strange to the fact that his governance might have make things hard and favor violence in Haiti in a way that he was himself the victim of such chaos and violence. But nevertheless, I would say that nothing in the world can justify such a coward act. The assassination of the president today has left us with no constitutional solution because the country was without parliament, elections had not been held, was with a prime minister that was ad interim, he was not confirmed by the Senate, and obviously all the mayors were not also, their terms had finished, so this caught us by surprise in a sense that we found ourselves in a situation where there was no constitutional process in order to fill the presidential void and ensure institutional stability. And today, we are witnessing a situation where gangs control most neighborhoods of the capital. They kill. They stop economic activities whenever they want, and they do it with the complicity and often the passivity of the authorities, and as well as the national police that is outgunned by these gangs. As a result, Haiti is a failed state today, and the odds are not very positive for the future.
Right. I want to focus on those gangs, because they're not just criminal gangs. You pointed out complicity from the authorities, from the police. We know the U.S. government took some examples and said, you know, there was clearly a collusion because they're empowered and probably paid or financed. I mean, can you talk us through a little bit what is happening, why those gangs have so much clout on Haiti today?
Absolutely. For 5 years, there has been a collusive relationship between the different governments of former President Jovenel Moïse, with the gangs kind of enjoying immunity. They were using the gangs to intimidate their opponents and crash popular rebellion.
And kill sometimes.
Certainly. We've seen many massacres in Haiti that have been denounced on France 24 for that matter. Secondly, there's also a relationship of a collusive nature between these gangs and some private sector leaders who are being extorted by the gangs and have to pay the gangs, so they play into this dirty game. And also there's a collusive relationship between certain powerful politicians, senators wannabe, congressmen wannabe, who are banking on the violence of the gangs to steal the elections. So when you have at the highest level of the state this kind of collusive relationship with the gangs, they get more power, more money by the day, and they become so strong that for the moment being, they do not respond to anyone else than themselves. So they are totally autonomous. They have kidnapped the capital. They have kidnapped life. And in Haiti, people are not living a normal life. People are surviving. And as a matter of fact, people are fleeing the country. We've seen thousands of migrants. You've seen these images on France 24 on the border of Mexico and the United States after 3 months in the jungle of Latin America trying to flee Haiti. Leaving Haiti today for a young, even with a good diploma, with a capacity to work, is the first thing that comes into mind since the country has really gone into a descent to hell.
Right. I mean, the gangs were on display just recently on the streets of the capital. There was a ceremony honoring the founding father. The prime minister was supposed to come. There was some shooting. He fled, and the leader of an alliance of gangs, well known in Haiti, the G9, MP Tardieu, who's known by his surname Barbecue, essentially took over this ceremony and just very recently, he called for the prime minister to resign. So he seems to be the real boss in Haiti right now.
That was a very terrible image for Haiti, for democracy, and quite frankly, for Haitians living all around the world. I mean, for the prime minister not to be able to go to a place where any gang leader can go easily is really a palpable sign of where we are even today. And it's also a palpable sign of maybe the lack of leadership of the prime minister, maybe the impossibility for him to take Haiti to the next level, to govern during the transition, because we need to go to elections one day or another. But before we go, first of all, we need to secure security. This is the first preoccupation of Haitians. This is the first of the preoccupation of Haitians today. Security. We need to restore law and order. But in order for us to do that, we need to have a legitimate government. We don't, because constitutionally speaking, we know, we talked about it, there's a void, but that at least need the legitimacy of a largely consensual political agreement.
Ariel Henry doesn't have it?
So far not. He has a very short one. He has proposed an agreement called l'accord de Musso, which is proposal, like two others on the table. There's another one from civil society, which calls for bicameral government, a two-head government with a prime minister and a president, while Ariel Henry's proposal is only for him to control and manage the transition. This second agreement calls for a president or a prime minister chosen by different sectors of society. And there's a third one also, Protocole d'Entente Nationale, which calls for some sort of a hybrid solution. In other words, we would have a two-headed government with maybe Prime Minister Ariel Henry in power or another one, but also a president that could be chosen in blessing with what is left of the parliament, 10 elected senators. But there are also for possibly a triumvirate, which means a three-head collegial government that could be also an option in order to make sure that everyone is represented at the table. It's very complicated, yes, but at the end of the day, we need to get to a solution.
One thing that seems fairly simple is that it's impossible to hold elections in the current conditions in Haiti.
Absolutely. Myself, I'm a young politician leader. We just launched a political movement. Our dream is to go to election, but not to any election. Today, there are not security enough to Haiti to even contemplate the possibility of having election. So therefore, we first of all need to take care of restoring law and order. Then we need an impartial and objective electoral council. And last but not least, we need a government, a form of personality that inspire trust. People who have done things in society that society would be at ease with. If we don't have these three elements, there's no way for us to even talk about elections.
Right. I mean, we've seen this kidnapping of U.S. missionaries. I mean, kidnappings are happening mostly for Haitians, but people talk more about it when it's a Western hostage. I mean, is it different than mere criminality? Is this getting to another level?
You are touching a very important point, because we've gone from just regular classic criminality organizations, trying to extort people for money, to a situation of terrorism. I would say we need to call it the way we are. And this is an occasion for me to call on the international community and tell them, watch out, and call on the national community. We've gone from criminality to terrorism. When you have armed gangs walking into churches and taking the priests, or people simply praying, asking God for his mercy, you have a situation of terrorism. Today, if we look at the police, and we need to give them the strength, the financial strength, the technical strength to tackle the issue of insecurity, we need to think about an anti-terrorism unit, because what we have to deal with today in Haiti is terror.
What about the international community? It has invested a lot. The UN was present for years. The result is not exactly a brilliant one, is it?
That's the least you could say, for a very simple reason. The UN has been in Haiti for many years, 15 years, maybe more, has spent $10 billion. In certain cases have helped. In 2006, they were very instrumental in helping Haiti. But the problem is that 15 years later, and $10 billion later, what is there to show for? Haiti today is a state in chaos. It's a failed state. And quite frankly, is a case study of how not to help a country. So yes, we need international assistance. We need international solidarity, not an intervention, but we need to do it through a new deal. A new deal where we would, together with our friends from the international community, decide together on the best course for Haiti, but with Haitians, of course, being the first and foremost, the only ones taking decisions for the country.
Jerry Tardieu, I want to thank you very much for appearing here on the France 24 interview, and thank you all for watching it. Stay tuned for more news.